When someone wrongs you, consider what motivated him to do so when you have an understanding of his moral compass. If your conception of good and evil is similar to his, you will have to forgive him because you would have acted the same way under similar circumstances. However, if your conception of good and evil differs from his, you should find it even easier to overlook the wrongdoings of someone who is confused with a moral model. Men sell themselves at different prices, so when Flores was considering whether or not to appear at a show, Agrippinus replied, "Appear by all means." When Flores asked, "But why do you not appear?" Agrippinus replied, "I do not even consider the question for the man who has once stooped to consider such questions, and to reckon up the value of external things he's not far from forgetting the manner of man he is." Because men sell themselves at different prices. If something external is upsetting you, the cause of your sorrow is not the object itself, but rather your assessment of it, which you are free to change at any time. The application of ideas like "do not lie" is the earliest and most significant area of philosophy. Following this are arguments for why we shouldn't lie. The third field asks, for instance, how does this prove it? To elucidate and reinforce the evidence. What precisely qualifies as proof? Logical inference. What is it? Definition of contradiction. What is a lie and what is truth? The most significant field, however, is the one that should take up the majority of our time is the first. However, we act in the exact opposite way. We are preoccupied with the third field and give it all of our attention, passing the first by altogether. As a result, we lie but have no trouble justifying why we do so. Shouldn't since, as an hour is a part of the day, am I a human being who is part of the total and must come and go for an hour? You have to act in life like you would at a dinner party. When something is brought to you, extend your hand and accept it in moderation. If something doesn't come to you, don't stop it from passing by. If it hasn't come yet, don't stretch your desire towards it. Wait until it does. Do this about children, wives, public positions, and riches. Eventually, you will be a worthy partner at the feasts of the gods. And if you don't even accept the things that are placed in front of you but can reject them, you will not only be a partner at the feasts of the gods, but also their empire. Keep in mind that everything we own is a loan from fortune, which has the power to take it back at any time, even without prior notice. For this reason, we should cherish every one of our loved ones, but we should also always keep in mind that neither they nor we can guarantee that we will be able to keep them for an extended period. Never call yourself a philosopher nor talk a great deal among the unlearned about theorems, but act conformably to them. Thus Saturn Entertainment don't talk how persons ought to eat, but eat as you ought. For remember that in this manner Socrates also universally avoided all ostentation, and when persons came to him and desired to be recommended by him to philosophers, he took and recommended them so well, did he bear being overlooked, so that if any talk should happen among the unlearned, concerning philosophic theorems be you, for the most part silent, for there is great danger in immediately throwing out what you have not digested. And if anyone tells you that you know nothing and you are not nettled at it, then you may be sure that you have begun your business for sheep. Don't throw up the grass to show the shepherds how much they have eaten, but inwardly digesting their food, they outwardly produce wool and milk. Thus, therefore, do you likewise not show theorems to the unknown, but the actions produced by them. After they have been digested, philosophy is not a popular or self-serving profession. Rather, it is concerned with facts rather than words. It is not pursued to pass the time or make leisurely activities more enjoyable. Rather, philosophy shapes and develops a person's personality, orders their life, regulates their behavior, instructs them on what to do and what not to do, sits at the steering wheel and keeps them afloat as they are tossed about in dangerous waters. Without philosophy, no one can live a life free of anxiety. Philosophy, For what keeps us from saying that the key to a happy life is to have a mind that is lofty, fearless, and steadfast, that is placed beyond the reach of desire and fear, that counts virtue as the only good, that baseness as the only evil, and that everything else is just a worthless collection of things that come and go without adding to or subtracting from the highest good. A man who is thus grounded must, whether he chooses to or not, necessarily be attended by constant cheerfulness and deep inner joy. Since he finds pleasure in his resources and desires, no joy is greater than his inner joys. My advice is to apply what the philosophers say and what we read in their writings to our search for a happy life. We should look for insightful lessons and lively, noble-minded proverbs that can be applied immediately to everyday situations rather than absurd or antiquated expressions of grandiose metaphors and figures of speech. And we should study them thoroughly so that the words become works. No one, in my opinion, lets humanity down quite as much as those who study philosophy as if it were a kind of commercial skill and then go on to live quite differently from how they advise others to live. All you need are these two things: the conviction that judgment is made in the here and now, action for the common good, and an attitude of appreciation for all that comes your way in the here and now. Remember that everything you have today was once among the things you could only dream of, so don't ruin what you have by wishing for what you do not have. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, and does not wish for what he does not have. True happiness is to enjoy the present without worrying about the future. It is to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient, for he who is so wants nothing. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and our reach. Go through this fleeting period of existence in harmony with the natural world and arrive at your last resting place with gratitude, just like an olive that has reached maturity would, thanking the tree that provided it with growth and the land that fed it. Having few desires rather than many large assets is what defines riches. Gratitude is the parent virtue of all other virtues, as well as the highest virtue. The impoverished guy is not the one with too little. Rather, he is the one who yearns for more. If you acknowledge that you have enjoyed yourself much, it is your responsibility to express gratitude for what you have been given, rather than to lament what has been taken away. You have to act in life like you would at a dinner party. When something is brought to you, extend your hand and accept it in moderation. If something doesn't come to you, don't stop it from passing by. If it hasn't come yet, don't stretch your desire towards it. Wait until it does. Do this about children, wives, public positions, and riches. Eventually, you will be a worthy partner at the feasts of the gods. And if you don't even accept the things that are placed in front of you but can reject them, you will not only be a partner at the feasts of the gods but also their empire. He is a smart guy who rejoices in what he has rather than laments what he does not have. Imagine that you are dead. You have lived your life. Now, take what remains and enjoy it to the fullest. We should try by all means to be as grateful as possible, for gratitude is a good thing for ourselves in a sense in which justice that is commonly supposed to concern other persons is not. Gratitude returns in large measure unto itself. There is not a man who, when he has benefited, his neighbor has not benefited himself. I do not mean for the reason that he whom you have aided will desire to aid you, or that he who you have defended will desire to protect you, or that an example of good conduct returns in a circle to benefit the doer, just as examples of bad conduct recoil upon their authors, and as men find no pity if they suffer wrongs which they themselves have demonstrated the possibility of committing. But that the reward for all the virtues lies in the virtues themselves, for they are not practiced with a view to recompense the wages of a good deed, is to have it done. I am grateful not in order that my neighbor, provoked by the earlier act of kindness, may be more ready to benefit me, but simply in order that I may perform a most pleasant and beautiful act. I feel grateful not because it profits me, but because it pleases me. Develop the practice of being thankful for everything that comes your way. Since everything has helped you progress, you should put everything in your list of blessings. Avoid focusing on fictitious advantages. Often entails the loss of rewards in the present. When you wake up in the morning, consider how fortunate you are to be able to think, appreciate, and love. The main thing in life is to simply identify and separate matters so that I can tell myself straight which are externals that I have no control over and which are related to the decisions I make. Only then can I look within myself to the choices I make, not to uncontrollable externals, for good and evil. It is a struggle to change oneself when we can no longer alter a circumstance. Nothing outside of your control can control your thoughts. Recognize this, and you'll gain resilience. A man might lose everything, but one thing remains, the last of all human liberties, the ability to choose one's path and attitude in any given set of circumstances. There is only one path to happiness, and that is to give up worrying about things that are beyond our control. Some things are within our control, while others are not. These include our opinions, motivations, desires, and aversions. To put it another way, everything that is not under our control includes our bodies, our possessions, our reputations, our offices, and anything else that is not of our own making. The most beautiful and significant thing that even God is happy about is within our control, and that is the right use of our impressions. We must fully concern ourselves with the things that fall within our purview and leave the things outside of it to the universe. You are a fool if you want your spouse, kids, and friends to live forever because you are desiring things that you cannot control to be controlled, and things that are not yours to be your own. No one can have all they want, but they may choose not to crave what they lack and gladly utilize what they already have. The choices you make daily determine the substance of your character. Your actions and thoughts shape who you become. A person should never be upset over what they are unable to aid or what they are unable to assist. Utilize your resources as efficiently as possible and accept the rest as it comes. Remember that goals are among the things over which we have complete control. I believe that when a Stoic worries about things over which he has some but not complete control, like winning a tennis match, he will be very careful about the goals he sets for himself. In other words, he will be careful to set internal rather than external goals, so his tennis goals will not be to win a match, something external over which he has only partial control, but to play to the best of his ability in the match, something internal over which he has complete control. By selecting this goal, he will spare himself frustration and disappointment should he lose the match because it was not his goal. For example, Stoics would advise me not to worry about whether my wife loves me, even though this is something I can control to some extent. However, if I do worry about this, my goal should not be to make her fall in love with me. No matter how hard I try, I might not succeed in this goal and would then be very unhappy. Rather, my goal should be an internal one, to behave in a way that I can love. Similarly, my goal about my boss should be to perform my duties to the best of my ability. Despite my employer and wife's subsequent reactions to my efforts, I know that I can accomplish these objectives. By internalizing goals into his everyday existence, the Stoic manages to maintain his composure in the face of circumstances over which he has little influence.